These are the new parts for my clutch on this 1983 R100RS. This is the front cover, and that's the side that faces you. And then on this side is a machined surface that the clutch disc or plate runs against. I've cleaned that very carefully with brake cleaner, so there's no oil or debris or anything on it, so it's nice and clean. This shows some of the junk I got off of that contact surface on the front cover or housing cover. Then this part is the pressure plate, which goes in the back of the clutch, and it has some ribs along here which run up against the diaphragm spring that I'll show you in a moment. But it too has a machined surface or contact surface that the clutch plate runs against, so I also cleaned that carefully with brake cleaner so there's nothing on it. Now this is the diaphragm spring, and this is the side that goes up against the flywheel, and the bowed out side is the side that faces you. The very edge of this touches the flywheel and spins, so I put a very, very fine coat of Moly 60 lubricant on it to just give it an easier life. But I want to be very, very light because I don't want it to throw any lubricant off as it spins. And I don't want it to be so thick that it's going to attract a lot of clutch dust. Now the fourth part that goes in is the clutch disc or plate. And this is the inside that goes next to the flywheel. And this is the outside that faces you. And it has a sleeve with the splines that the transmission input shaft fits into. So this is the surface that has the friction material, and you want to be careful when you put the clutch together not to get anything on that, no oil or anything, because that'll foul it, then you basically have a slipping clutch. So those are the fundamental parts for the clutch assembly. There's another detail about the front cover. It has a white paint mark which indicates where it's heaviest, and also on the edge of the pressure plate is a white paint mark which indicates where it's heaviest. Now if you look at the front cover, there's 3 pins, so they're 120 degrees apart, and on the back of the pressure plate are these bands that have a center hole for the pins. What you want to do is distribute the heavy parts around the perimeter. So if this is the pin next to the heavy part on the pressure plate, I don't want to mount it on this pin because then I've got the 2 heavy parts both on the same side and everything's going to vibrate. Instead, what I want to do is rotate it. So this is the heavy part of the front plate, and this is the heavy part of the pressure plate. So I'm going to put it upside down. Here's the white paint mark on the front cover. Here's the white paint mark on the pressure plate. And I'm going to rotate it 120 degrees. And these bands are movable. There we go. One, you can slide these bands around a little bit to get everybody to line up. Actually, kind of have to do that to get it to go together. There. So that's how it goes together, but what I want to verify is that here's the white mark for the heavy front cover, and the next pin over is the white mark for the pressure plate. Now there's one other white mark which is on the flywheel, and you can see it right here. So this is the heavy spot on the flywheel. So what I'm going to do when I mount the clutch is I'm going to put the heavy mark here at the top on the mounting. Then this heavy mark will be 120 over, and then the heavy mark on the flywheel will be down there. Now I need to assemble this clutch assembly with the clutch disc in between the pressure plate and the front cover. But I don't want to get my heavy marks messed up. So there's the heavy mark there, and that's the other heavy mark on the pressure plate. So I'm going to put it down just like that. So here's the front cover heavy mark. I'm going to pick this up and just flip it over. So I'm going to make a sandwich. Now, this is the clutch disc, and as I said before, there's a portion here with a sleeve that has to point outward. That means the flat surface goes down like this on the front cover. And then I pick this up and just flip it over and get everything where it needs to be on the pins. And I've got my clutch assembly together. Here's the outward face, and that's the sleeve, which is as it should be. Here's a heavy mark, and there's the other heavy mark. So that assembly has the right orientation for good balance, and it ensures that the right face of the clutch disc is pointing outward. The ribs here touch the pressure plate and they rub. So I'm going to use just a very tiny amount of Moly 60 on a Q-tip. And there's a little ridge right in the middle of these ribs. And I just put a little bit on that all the way on all 6 of these just to lubricate that. But again, not so much as to put enough to be spun off or to collect a lot of clutch dust. Now I'm about ready to put the clutch assembly on the flywheel, and it's mounted with 6 bolts. These are new ones, and washers. And the other thing that I use is a clutch centering tool. I happen to get this one from Euromoto Electrics. You'll see what that does here in just a moment. Now I have the heavy mark of the flywheel at the bottom, and I have the clutch pack ready to go. And what I want is to keep the heavy mark on the housing, the front housing at the top. So it's going to mount up on this set of holes, and then this will be the heavy mark on the pressure plate, which will go on that set of holes. So that's going to have everything at 120 degrees all the way around. Now, this is the diaphragm spring. This is the inside. So it butts right in like that into the face of the flywheel. And then I pick up the clutch pack, and the pins go into a hole in the face of the flywheel. And I take a bolt and run it and catch the thread just a bit, and then another one to catch the thread over here just a bit. There we go. Okay, so the pack is very loosely mounted and the clutch disc can move. Now I take this and it'll center it. So when I go to mount the transmission, this is going to be dead center. And I just go around now and put the rest of the bolts in, because as I tighten these up, it's going to pinch the clutch disc and I won't be able to move it. So with the centering tool, it'll be dead center. I want to visually verify that I have all the heavy marks 120 degrees apart. And here's the flywheel next to here. And then when I come up, here's the heavy mark on the front cover. And now I'm going to rotate this so I can look back here on the pressure plate to see if I can see the paint mark. I can visually verify now that the 3 heavy marks are 1, 2, 3. Everybody's 120 degrees apart. So it's okay to torque up the bolts now, and I'll be all done with the clutch. As I was snugging them up, I looked through here at each of the pins, and I sort of rotated the crankshaft around just to be sure the pins are sliding smoothly into the holes, which they are. I have all the bolts snugged down now, and I'm ready to torque them. So I use a large flat blade screwdriver, and I stick it in between 2 of the teeth on the flywheel, and that is a way I can just kind of lean into that and keep it from moving. I'm going to torque it to 15 foot-pounds, and you've got 6 bolts but in sets of 2. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, just to bring it up in a uniform way. So it's sort of an every other bolt pattern. And then you shift. And that kind of makes sure that diaphragm spring is being pressured up uniformly. So everybody's at 15, and I'm just going to do one more check to make sure they're all snug. Yep. Yep. Uh-huh. Yep. Okay, and the last one. All right, so the clutch is installed and the clutch disc is centered, so all done.